Welcome, Exiles! In my previous video, I showed you guys my starter concept build of in-stacking with Kinetic Fusillade, and in this video, I wanted to show you guys how the build looks when it gets pushed with a little bit of gear. I've been farming and testing it against all sorts of endgame juiced content, and I'm quite pleased with how well it deals with pretty much everything you throw at it. It has insanely good clear speed, amazing boss damage, respectably high tankiness, and it's an all-around joy to play. It's far from being min-max just yet though, since this is an in-stacking build, and of course the sky is the limit, but this is the best it could get with what I would call affordable gear, sitting at a total of around 60 divines. Now I know what you guys might be thinking, but Callie, why would we play this over Kinetic Blast? It's essentially the same build, no? And to that I say, not quite. Kinetic Blast is by far one of the best map clearing skills in the game, there's no denying that. However, it also severely lacks in terms of single target damage, at least until you reach very high gear investments, and even then it's still kind of mediocre. In comparison, Kinetic Fusillade offers comparable levels of clear speed to Kinetic Blast, while still maintaining very high levels of boss damage, even on a lower budget. Think of it like a jack of all trades type of skill in a way. I will be leaving a POV of the character in the video description as always, if you guys want to try it out. With that out of the way, let me show you the gear. I'll start off with the main pieces, the 2 rings and the amulet. We want to grab a non-mirror dusk ring for our left ring slot, a time clasp ring with as much percent reduced skill effect duration as possible, and a warped timepiece amulet, again with as much reduced skill effect duration as possible. The implicits on the amulet aren't mandatory, but if you can get percent int on it, you definitely should. We also want to anoint it with tranquility since we get a lot of ES from stacking int. This will give us quite a large amount of damage. But if you don't have an impossible escape drill with Mage Ban on it, stick with Window of Opportunity Anoint. The Dusk Ring is easily craftable, just spam Spite Essences on it to guarantee the int, and hope for some other decent mods as well. Try to get an open prefix on it in order to benchcraft non-channeling skills have -7 to total mana cost. This one is pretty important for mana sustain, and I would highly recommend it. Now you might be wondering, why are we stacking so much skill effect duration reduction? Well, it's because Kinetic Fusillade is an attack skill that doesn't directly attack when you press the button. Instead, it generates projectiles which hover around you for a certain duration. After the duration expires, they shoot out. If we shoot before it expires, we restart the duration from the previous attack and add more projectiles. This means that we must have way less duration than our attack time in order to not skip projectiles, and also to make it so we can just hold the button to fire continuously without stopping. But basically, just make sure your duration is at least 0.05 seconds lower than your attack time, and you should be fine. Next up, the wand. It's a generic in-stacking wand with spell damage and flat lightning damage per int. If you can, try to also get flat added lightning damage, and multi-mod benchcraft strength, int, and crit, as well as attack speed. Again, if you don't have an impossible escape with Mage Bane, skip the attack speed and get crit multi instead. On the shield, we want to get int, increased chance to block, ES, and resists. Ideally, we also want to get percent ES recovery on block, but those cost an arm and a leg, so this will do fine for now. Also, block is our main source of defense, so try to get as much of it from the shield as possible because that's the only attack block we're gonna get for now. For our belt, we can grab a synthesis belt with percent increased intelligence, as well as flat int, resists, some ES, and if possible, increased LE damage with attack skills. These belts go for super cheap nowadays, so it's a perfect filler until we can get a Mage Blood. The grafts we want to use are Jolting Eshgraft and Storming Eshgraft. Jolting Eshgraft provides us with a buff when we crit that stacks up to 10 times and gives us percent more max attack damage, crit chance, and crit multi per stack. And Storming Eshgraft provides us with a ground buff when we cast it. This buff gives us a ton of flat added lightning damage and also makes our damage lucky while we stand in it. It has a 14-second duration and a 15-second cooldown, so it's pretty much up permanently against bosses or whenever we need more damage. These grafts are an insane gain in power, and I would highly recommend you grab them ASAP. You can get ones with spell damage or percent int prefix, whichever one you can afford. The rest of the gear is primarily focused on getting int, ES, and fixing resists. but I do want to talk a little bit about the Eldritch modifiers. I'll start off with the most important ones, the gloves. We want to get gain 1 rage on attack hit, as well as inflict lightning exposure on hit. Rage will provide us with a truckload of damage, and lightning exposure just works way too good with Elementalist exposure Ascendancy. Both of these are non-negotiable and you must get them. On the helmet, we want to get % fizz damage from hits taken as chaos. We don't have any fizz mitigation on the build, so the more of it that we can remove, the better. And also, we want % reduced mana cost of attacks. We need just a little bit of a push to be able to afford spamming our Kinetic Fusillade, and this implicit is exactly what we need for now. On the body armor, we want to grab some more fizz to chaos conversion for the exact same reason as the helmet, as well as % increased effect of non-curse auras. You could also opt into grabbing crit multi instead of aura effect, but I'll leave that decision up to you. On the boots, we want % increased action speed and chance to avoid elemental ailments. Action speed is insanely good for damage, but again, if you don't have an impossible escape with Mage Bane, just grab any golem buff effect instead. Chance to avoid elemental ailment is pretty good, and I'm more than likely going to try and max it out so I can combo it with Storm Shroud later down the line. For our flasks, I'm still using the exact same setup as my last video. Dying Sun, Silver Flask, Quicksilver Flask, Sulfur Flask, and a Diamond Flask. You can experiment around with them and see which one you like the most, but you should definitely try and get % chance to gain a charge on crit on all of them, and Corrupted Blood immunity on one of them if you don't have a jewel with CB immunity. As for the tree, I've done some minor changes to it to accommodate the 2 in-stacking clusters. We're focusing on getting Spell Block, Int, and Aura Reservation efficiency primarily, while grabbing some useful notables and masteries along the way, like the wand masteries and multi-shot. The jewels is where it gets a little expensive. We want to grab 2 large clusters with 12 passives, spell damage, attributes, int, increased effect, and ES. Mine don't have ES yet because those are like 40 divs or higher, but I will be getting that in the upcoming week. On the clusters themselves, we want to put 2 Abyss jewels on one of them with as much flat added lightning damage as possible, and 2 split personalities with int and ES on the other. We'll be using a impossible escape with Mage Bane in order to get window of opportunity and the 2 small passives near it. This jewel isn't mandatory, but it does allow us to grab another anoint on our amulet, and also allows us to stack a bit more attack speed for more damage, so it's very nice to have. We'll be using a Light of Meaning with attributes over here in order to gain a truckload of attributes, Watcher's Eye with recover ES on hit while affected by discipline, and leech while affected by vitality. If you don't want to get leech with vitality, you can instead grab life leech from Clever Thief, as well as the instant leech mastery. Personally, I don't have any mana problems, and getting some leech from the Watcher's Eye allows me to spend those points elsewhere. The tattoos I'm using aren't really that important, but I've put 1 leech on my singular strength node and proj speed on my dex nodes. You can experiment with them though, and swap them around as you wish. For our Ascendancy, we're still using an Elementalist, and we want to grab Liege of the Primordial because golems are OP, Bringer of Ruin because the heralds give us a truckload of damage, and this Ascendancy allows us to use them almost for free, Mastermind of Discord to make our exposure even stronger, and lastly, Shaper of Winter to apply chill and lessen the damage of enemies a bit. You can also opt into taking Shaper of Storms instead if you wish to do more damage, or if you just don't want to deal with ailment reflect mods. I would highly advise that you don't use Shaper of Flames because it's currently kind of bugged and makes us take more damage which we shouldn't be taking. Now it's time for the gems. We'll be using Kinetic Fusillade with Volatility, less duration, awaken greater multiple projectiles, awaken elemental damage with attacks, and increase critical damage. Since we're a lightning based build, Volatility will increase our high end damage by a ton while not really reducing our low end that much, since that's already super low anyway. Less duration is absolutely mandatory and self-explanatory. Awakened GMP is very good to have because of the extra projectile it provides, but if you cannot afford it, just use greater volley instead and you'll be fine. Increased critical damage is massive for our build since we get up to 90% crit chance when we max out our power charges and jolt stacks, and awakened Ellie damage is great for just adding some more damage to our ability while also making us immune to Ellie reflect damage. We have Lightning Warp as our travel skill linked with faster casting and less duration. You can use other travel skills if you want, but Lightning Warp is actually so fun to play with. I would highly recommend you give it a chance since we don't really get to play with it that often. We have Flame Golem, Stone Golem, Ice Golem, and Lightning Golem. We're an Elementalist, so all of these golems are mandatory. The amount of stats they provide to us plus is just way too crazy not to have. On our wand, we'll be using a level 1 vitality with Mark on Hit and Assassin's Mark in order to cap out our crit chance against bosses and also get some extra crit damage while we're at it. For the auras, we want to grab Discipline, Wrath, and level 20 Precision linked with a level 3 Enlighten, as well as a Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, Tempest Shield linked with a second level 3 Enlighten. That about covers everything there is to say about this build. I've been having tons of fun blasting through all kinds of endgame juice content with it in the last week, and I'm fully prepared to keep blasting the new content that GG is going to give us this week. If you end up trying it out, I hope you enjoy it as much as I have. If you guys have any questions or recommendations, drop them down in the comments below and I'll reply back to you as soon as I can. If you wish to see my future PoE content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay sane, exiles.